Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we are still carrying on with the games of David Janowski. And this is a particularly fine game, a win against the very solid Schlechter at the London International in 1899. And well, it was one of those games where normally when I play through a game, I get a pretty good sense of what the general flow of the game was, who was better where and why. But sometimes, the engines just really surprise you. And well, this was certainly true in this game. I thought that Schlechter had made a few bad decisions on the queen side, and after that it was just plain sailing for Janowski. And well, the reality of the game turned out to be quite different. So let's have a look how this happened. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, and now knight c3. And we've already remarked on this that, well, Janowski, like Tarrasch, very much liked to put the knight on c3 in these Rye-Lopez positions, which, well, nowadays is well, kind of unusual. You see it in the anti-marshals and stuff like that, but normally in typical Lopez, you're just playing this knight round to d2, to f1, to g3, this typical maneuver. Well, from c3, the knight can go to e2 to g3, so often it's not that different, well, as we'll see in the game. But, yeah, just interesting how this came about. So b5, bishop b3, and now d6. And, well, actually, this is kind of the problem with knight c3, that black is threatening very quickly to play knight a5, takes b3, and gain the bishop pair. I think, there was a big debate, at this time, whether this was bad or not, actually, whether giving up that light squared bishop was a problem, or whether the time that black spent to capture it would count against him. I mean, after all, there were very many lines of the Rye-Lopez where white's giving up the light squared bishop. The exchange variation after a6, bishop takes c6 here, and a lot of variations of the Steinitz. You're playing bishop takes c6 and then d4. So it's not a stupid thing to investigate, really. But in general, I think we're pretty settled on the fact that in general, if black swaps off the knight for the bishop on b3, then that's a pretty good swap, really. So one of these days I will do a video on the amazing game Tarrasch against Spielmann, which carried on a4, bishop g4, ab, and Spielmann went all in with knight d4. It was an absolutely stunning game. But here Janowski played the rather more tame d3, and Schlechter played knight a5, just grabbing that bishop. So knight e2. This was all Janowski's plan, castles, and now knight g3, and the knight is just being rerouted to the king side, aiming for the f5 square, all very typical in the Lopez, and Janowski's just decided that he doesn't care at all about the bishop on b3. Strange in a way, because Janowski was renowned for his love of the two bishops, so just giving one away and one that's pointing towards the black king does surprise me in a way. Yeah, now Schlechter played a bit of an odd move. He played the move c6, which, yeah, I don't know, sort of a little bit hard to understand, really. c5 would be the natural Lopez move here. Just, well, actually, even threatening c4 in this position, but, just grabbing some queenside central space, stopping d3 to d4. And after c3, well, black's got a choice. He could take on b3 like this. Or the engines were also looking at playing c4, which turned out quite well. It looks like something like some sort of Najdorf somehow. This, the knight comes round to b7, comes round to c5. You play a5. Just a very pleasant position for white there. That was Stockfish against Dragon in one of my engine games. Schlechter played c6. Maybe he was looking to play d5 eventually, so he wanted to take the bishop, play d5 and be able to recapture with a pawn. Maybe that was the idea. A little bit ambitious, but yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. White played c3, takes, rook e8. And here d4 was played, and well, this was what Janowski played, and it's also what all the engines want to play. They want to get in d4 whilst they can, and that also stops black from playing d6 to d5. So Schlechter had to find a plan here. The engines are quite keen on just playing e takes d4, knight d4, and then we'll go bishop b7, and we'll go bishop f8, and yeah, just try and put some pressure on this pawn somehow. This sort of stuff. Quite decent for black. I think around that era, black players were rather wary of playing e takes d4, tending to prefer to keep the centre, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. Rook e1, and now an interesting move from black, c5. Maybe a little bit early. I mean, the engines just sort of think there's no real need for it. They would just want to go h6 and then go a5, and just play like that really. But c5 is actually not such a bad move. Sort of asking white, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to release the tension in the centre, or are you going to give me the chance to go c takes d4? d5 was played by Janowski, and here it starts getting quite interesting looking at stuff with the engines, because yeah, the engines, the incredible thing about engines nowadays is just how focused they are on active play, and you get this sort of blocked position really, where typically yeah, human players are sort of thinking, oh, okay, well, with black, better just draw up the Maginot lines and just try and survive this. And the engines are just saying, okay, well, let's go for active play then. Let's get it all moving. And for example, this is Stockfish against Dragon. We're getting a5, bishop d7, and in we go with a4. Breaking up the queen side, getting black some open space. And white's not going to have a chance to do anything dangerous on the king side. He's already going to have to deal with counterplay on the queen side. Another idea, this is from Stockfish's black, g6, stopping knight f5, h3, h5, yes, of course, stopping white from playing g4. And after you go bishop g5, I just go a5, bishop d7, and a4, and in we go again. It's just making sure that just not accepting that the black player is supposed to be playing passively in these Lopez positions, but just finding the breaks and then going for them. Well, I mean, it transforms the game simply. When you're seeing this, I'm looking at the game and thinking, oh, this is going to be one of those passive. Passive sort of Lopez positions where black, just got to sit there and take it. And engines are just saying, yeah, no, even, okay, let's just get our counterplay going. Very, yeah, just quite striking somehow. Schlechter played knight d7, which is a little bit odd. But in actual fact, what he was aiming for was, he was kind of anticipating some sort of attack with h3, g4. And he was looking to play his knight round to g6, aiming for the f4 square that will be weakened when you play h3, g4. It's a bit odd, but it's not so stupid. It's definitely got something to it there. So knight f5 was played by Janowski, and Schlechter continued with his plan, knight f8. Actually, the engines, well, they like knight f6, just threaten to, yeah, maybe even to take on f5 here, for example. But they also liked knight b6, which is quite interesting. This was Stockfish playing like this, and after g4, he just took and played a5. And, well, the knight's going to support counterplay with a4 there. It doesn't really feel that there's big danger on the king side there. So, okay, knight f8 was Schlechter's idea, not so bad. g4 now, and now Schlechter played a rather odd move again. Not quite sure about that one. He played the move bishop f6. It's a little bit weird putting the bishop in the way of that pawn advance somehow. I mean, it's not a terrible move. The engines are not, upset about it, particularly when it's played, but it is a bit strange. What the engines were going for now was alternative counterplay with c4. If you go b4, then we're going a5. And if you go bc4, we go queen c4, queen c2, and then a5. In we go, and we're going to start getting the counterplay going that way. And this was again quite reasonable. After bishop e3, go knight g6. Got a nice little square there, and you're going to go bishop d7 and whatever. Just a decent position for black here. But after g4, bishop f6, c4 was played by Janowski, which is not a bad move, just blocking in that queen side. And here, Schlechter played a move that I thought, after that, I thought, well, this must be must be like a clear advantage for white now, because the engines are looking at stuff like bishop d7, and we'll go a5 and that sort of stuff, right? But Schlechter played b4, which just closing the queen side there, and you sort of think, well, I've closed the queen side. I had some chances for counterplay. I don't have those anymore. So well, I'm with white, I'm just gonna build up on the queen side, and black's just going to have no counterplay whatsoever. But it wasn't that clear. I mean, the engines were not so upset about it. They were giving an advantage for white now, 0.41, but they weren't saying that it was absolutely hopeless. And well, quite interesting to see what happened, really. Yeah, the engines just wanted to play h4, and let's just get this moving straight away. Although the evaluation wasn't terrible, some wins were starting to come in there. So yeah, definitely some difficulties for black. Janowski played h3, which was a trifle slow. Knight g6, and then played the move g5 here, which looked quite reasonable to me. Bishop d8, but now knight h2, and suddenly, I looked at the row of games I've run from all sorts of different positions in this game, and I suddenly thought, hey, wait a minute, I'm just seeing a lot of wins for black from this position. And well, as far as my grandmasterly intuition tells me, this is white going for it. What on earth is happening here? Well, actually, the engines were saying minus 1.01 for white here, so they actually thought that white had a severe disadvantage. And the reason is that, well, the engines just feel that black can actually meet this kingside play head on, break open the kingside, and white's pieces are just not solid enough, white's not developed enough in order to support what he's got. And it's funny, it reminded me enormously of a game that I analysed on this channel. It was the game Elino Rubers against Erwin Lamy from Tata Steel C, I think it was, last year. It's called The Deepest Strategy. It's on the channel. I'll put the link in the comments as well. But in that game as well, the engines, Leela especially, was sort of showing, oh well, you're playing this sort of typical Lopez attack, but breaking open with f6, all perfectly fine. I mean, the queen side's closed, but it doesn't matter. You don't have the scaffolding really to make a really great attack there. And this game is very, very reminiscent of that. And well, you can see it's catching me totally by surprise. So very, very interesting indeed. So f6, that's a decent move. Takes, queen h5, rook f8, knight g4. And yeah, I was sort of saying, yeah, this must be absolutely great for white. He's really starting to get things moving. But well, the engines had a lot of ideas here. One thing that the engines were looking at was just to go bishop takes f5 and now knight e7. And the key point is that, yeah, this pawn is quite weak, actually. Yeah, you think you're attacking, but actually queen c8 is coming in. If you go knight f6, I just take with a rook, and you're dropping this pawn. So knight e3, we go queen c8, queen g4, queen e8, rook f1, king h8, just get like that. And now this amazing move, h5 from the engines. Actually, it's just, you just want to get the protection of f5 away. After queen e4, you go bishop g5, just making use of that. Rook g1, bishop f4, king h1, rook f6, calm as you like. h5 is stopping knight g4 as well, and we're just preparing queen f7 and grabbing this pawn. And well, that was basically it. Black won a pawn, and black won the game. Quite amazing, just how clearly, the setup, you're sort of going in general terms about, black's blocked up the queen side, so that this king side attack must be good for white, but yeah, not particularly. There's another very interesting idea here. If king h1, bishop d8 from the engines, knight g4, queen d7, and the big threat is just to go rook f5. So for example, after f3, yeah, the engines were also just looking at playing a5 here. They didn't really see any particular danger, but just rook f5, takes, and well, this is quite powerful for black. We've got all this coming in, and all this coming in. It's just really, white's got nothing here. The rooks are completely wrong for this position. The bishops are the ones that are going to make it. So, yeah, gradually, it takes a little while, but gradually you start to look at this position more and more, and you realise, my goodness, this was actually not very good for white at all. I mean, another big factor as well is this knight on g6, which is threatening to come into f4. So it really keeps this bishop, restricted somehow. But it is quite amazing. It's and just another reminder. You've got to believe in your defensive resources as well. And the engines really help you do that. So Schlechter didn't really get a grasp of that. He went queen d8, king h1. And then played the move knight f4. It's not a bad move, but the engines think that this is not anything for black in particular. He's losing all of the advantage that he had. So bishop takes f4, e takes f4, rook g1, rook a7. Good lateral defensive move. And here Janowski made a big mistake. I mean, the engines basically think that, right, now's time really to start trying to exchange off stuff. So g6 and now queen g5. This is what the engines are looking at. Queen exchanges, just get this position, and then they sort of thought that the position would be around equal. A little bit tricky, but basically I don't know. I'm not sure even. I don't even like it for white at all, I have to say. I'm suddenly looking at this position thinking, why am I equal? But that was definitely the best thing that you could do. There's also this move queen h4, for example. You just give away the pawn and then break with e5. And, well, I suppose, I mean, these pawns are going to be weak once you get in this e5 break. So, that's quite possible. d6, bishop b7. You get some pawns, get some counterplay. And, the engines feel that this is a draw. Yeah, you're going to lose that d6 pawn, and then you're not going to have very much to do with your knight. But the engines are really thinking, well, it's time for exchanges, and make sure that you don't lose. I mean, f3 seemed very natural, just going to support the e4 pawn and get the rooks doubled up. After all, we've got all these guys then in the attack. This is going to be huge, right? But the engines just say, bishop b2. Bishop c3, we're going to take on f5, break that up, check, knight f5, bishop f6, and they don't see any chance at all for white to break through. And in the meantime, we're going to have a5, a4, and just breaking on the queen side. Yeah, quite amazing, but I mean, they tried all sorts of things. Rook g6, very e5, and then rook g2, you have to go back again. It's just there just really isn't that much that that white can do here against this structure. It just doesn't have the right pieces, doesn't have them in the right position. So just bishop b2, bishop c3, get the bishop out of the range of the knight, and then just push this pawn on, and that was end of story basically. But after king h8, actually Janowski found a good move here. He played knight takes f6, finally getting rid of that bishop. And queen f6, the engines prefer rook f6, queen h4, queen f8, this sort of defense. So the rook is sort of patrolling the sixth rank, and then you've got the other rook defending there. But once again, I mean, it does sort of feel a little bit like white is pressing again now. So queen f6, knight h4, threatening knight g6, king g8, and now rook g2. So just preparing to play rook ag1. So Schlechter played rook e7, which was not such a bad move, just maybe threatening to go rook e5 at some stage. The queen's a little bit short of squares there, so rook g5 was played, and now queen b2, rook g1. And this is not white's lost a pawn. This is not so bad. I mean, if you go something like queen b3, I'm going queen h6 and then e5. That's a nice point of having the rook on there, and we're just breaking through on g7. So what should black do? Well, black should really just bring the queen back on f6, and the best that the engines had was knight f5, and then just basically a draw by perpetual like this, queen c8, and queen f5, queen c8. They didn't think that there was anything particularly dangerous. But I mean, Schlechter, I think, presumably was quite optimistic about life here. Wanted to keep his queen active, attacking the pawns, and he played the move rook f7. And it might be worth just pausing the video here and seeing whether you can spot what David Janowski found here. It's a very nice finish indeed. The finish was queen takes h7, king h7, rook h5 check, king there, and knight g6. And bizarrely enough, there is no mate. There is no escape here. Yeah, this rook on e7 blocks the escape route of the king. And if you do something like rook f6, or even if you go something like rook f5, we've just got rook h8 check and rook f8 checkmate, and there's no escape. I had to blink a couple of times just to really believe that that was true, but it really is true. So just a brilliant queen sacrifice there. Queen takes h7, and well, after here, and knight g6, Schlechter resigned. So there we are. Very interesting game. Do take a look at that game of Elina Rubers against Erin Lamy. It was very instructive, and it really, really does it. Also fit in very well with this game. Just amazing to see that. I think certainly as a player, I mean, one of my shortcomings is that I'm always impressed by attacks. Funnily enough, I've played a lot of risky games with black where I really try and stay on the edge and all that. But in general, when I'm just analysing a position, I'm always, very much on the side of the attacker there, and always tend to believe stuff. And well, actually, to be honest, a player like Luke McShane, I've analysed, sometimes with him, and you're always shocked. I'm always shocked when he just believes in the defence all the time, doesn't believe any attack at all, and well, it's always a nice contrast when we're analysing together like that, because basically he doesn't believe any of my moves at all, and I'm always very skeptical about his. So there we are. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was quite a stunning finish. I hope you agree. If you like the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, Reengineering the Chess Classics, which I do think is definitely worth it, full of lovely discoveries like this. And otherwise, thanks very much indeed for watching, and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.